As you guys know, we are coming to the end of our series, Emotional Motion Sickness, and I hope you guys have been getting as much out of it as I have as an adult. And this is not the kind of stuff that we talked about when I was your age. Like, I grew up at church, and I went to the youth group, and I did all of these things, and I never heard my pastor talk about mental health the way that Josh has. So I'm super grateful that you guys are growing up and you're getting this opportunity, and at this point in your lives where mental health is starting to really matter to you guys, it's being spoken about, and it's not just being spoken about at your schools or at your homes, but it's also part of the church world. So I'm super happy and super hopeful for that. But this is our panel. Can you guys give a round of applause? Yeah! I'm so excited. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We'll go down the couch. This is Jen Mesa. Jen, you want to tell us something about yourself?
Hey, I'm Jen. You guys probably have seen me floating around taking photos of y'all, creeping you out a little bit. I'm Gio's wife. So I think I was asked to participate today because I have a slew of mental health issues that have been a part of my life, from mental abuse to a friend that committed suicide in high school to the death of my first husband. So I'm really excited that this topic is being spoken about, because this is definitely something that is not spoken about, and it should be, because you just know you're not alone. You know, people go through this stuff all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, if you guys know Gio over there who does our announcements, and if you hear a little tiny kid voice, it's probably Mateo. There he is. Hi, Teo. All right, and this is Brendan. Brendan, you want to tell us about yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Brendan. I've been involved in Eastside for 5 to 6 years now. I think why I'm up here is because I've been dealing with anxiety and depression pretty much since my uncle committed suicide. So it's kind of been a wavy road for me up until now. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Can I just pause there to say, I think it's kind of funny how they're like guessing why they're up here, like we didn't tell them before. No, but in truth, we've all been through some stuff, and we've all, even you guys sitting out here, especially once you hit that adulthood, you know, everyone has their stuff. But the reason this group of people is up here is because of the way they've handled it, and because of the people they are here in front of us, that their mental health has suffered, and they're still here, and they're still bright and shining, and they love God, and they're ready to tell you guys all their stories. So that is truthfully why they're here. We've all seen some stuff. We've all been through some stuff. And those personal experiences are definitely going to be super helpful, I think, for you guys to hear about. But I want you to know really why they're up here is because they are such great examples for us of how to get through it. So that brings us to Hadley. You want to tell us about yourself, Hadley?
Yeah, my name is Hadley. I'm a senior at Truman High School. Most of you know me because I usually sing up here. But I'm so excited to be talking with you guys about something so serious. I think it's really cool because we all have kind of struggled with different things, and I think that's really cool that we all get to hit on different things. I know lots of you guys know my stories because my bracelets, that I struggled with self-harm before, but I'm just so excited to share how God has helped me through that, and I hope if you're struggling with something similar that you lean on Him to help you. So.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start this off by saying that we have purposefully called this a question and response. And that is actually something that we got from our lead pastor, Pastor Fred, who preaches down here on Sunday mornings. And the reason he calls it that is because we don't have all the answers. So this is not a question and answer. Like, you're not going to ask us if we've got these questions written down, and the answer might not be something that's helpful to you, but it's helpful to another person, or it might have nothing to do with you, or it might hit the mark, but not really. And so we just want to preface this by saying that none of us are experts, and that we don't have all the answers, but we think a healthy church and a healthy youth group is one that tackles these tough questions, knowing that we don't have the answers, and knowing that the best way to find an answer is to work through it together. So that's what we're going to go ahead and start on. So, let me say one more thing. So this text line is still up, and it is anonymous, but I can read them as you send them in. And again, very anonymous. I don't know who's sending them. But if you do have questions, like if you want someone to clarify or if you think of something new, feel free to text that line. I think we're going to leave that up on the screen through the whole night. So yeah, we have left room for a couple additional questions at the end if you guys do want to text those in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. One of these, the first one is, how do you cut a toxic person out of your life? And the person went on to say, I love them, but I don't know what to do. So that's a super good question. Does anyone up here feel like they have a good answer to that?
I can take that.
Yes.
So this is kind of a hit-home example for me. My father, for example, was very mentally abusive to me growing up. I was definitely his target for mental abuse. Nothing I could do lived up to anything that he ever thought that I should be. He has a slew of mental health issues that caused that, bipolar, alcoholic, drug addict, all of these kind of things went to play into it. My sister grew up and is a spitting image of him. So that can add a lot of stress on a family, especially when you have not only your sibling who's supposed to be like your confidant to go through that, but then also your father, like somebody you're supposed to be able to look up to. So really, I mean, it's hard because you're supposed to love and you're supposed to respect your family. And I do love them very much, and I do respect them for their limitations and the people that they are. However, I also understand that they're not able to meet my needs to help me grow in my faith and my walk with God. And me holding on to their issues really draws me apart from God because it really lets me let the devil just play with my mind and constantly question, why are they like this? I want to change them. Well, I can't change them. I can accept them, and I can set boundaries. Like my favorite verse is, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And
Yes.
I just think that is just so applicable in all of your relationships. You can love people, you can respect them, but you do not have to be their punching bag, and you don't owe anybody anything.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever heard that verse used for that, to talk about setting boundaries in your life. I love that. You know, I think I hear that verse a lot when you talk about dating, like guard your heart, like don't start dating someone and let them in too early and all this stuff. But I've never heard that. I love that. I think that's so true because I think more than a dating relationship can hurt you, I think a family relationship can hurt you, and friend relationships can hurt you. That's amazing, Jen. I love that.
I use it in like everything. Like I'm constantly like, okay, wait, am I guarding my heart here?
Yes.
Is this bringing me to God? Is it showcasing what he wants me to be in life? Or is it really doing the devil's work?
Yes,
That to me is
love
what that line means.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you guys have any advice or like stories about this?
Yeah, one of the main things I would say is, like, no offense to the person who asked this question, but I don't really like the phrase, like, cut someone out of your life, because it's not like an equation. Like, you're not working to cut someone out of your life, you're working to put God in the middle of that equation. And so it's not a matter of, like, how can I get this person out? It's how can you put God in? And so I think it's really hard because when you think of, like, letting go of someone, you think of like, oh, Brendan, I'm never going to talk to you again. I hate you so much. And it's not like that. Like, when it comes down to loving people, it's so important that, yeah, you set those boundaries and that you still love them. But just because you love them doesn't mean you have to be best friends with them. You also have to recognize, I mean, you already have, you recognize the effect that they've had on you, and you recognize that they're not good for you. So you've already taken the first step. But I would say pray for them. Also, that's a really big thing. Wait, can I do something real fast? Can I pray for us?
Do it.
Yeah.
Okay, this reminded me, because I was going to say we'll pray for them, and this reminded me, okay, so I was reading my Bible the other day, and I came across this verse. It's 1 Samuel 12:23a, and it says, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by failing to pray for you. So whenever you're like, oh, I'll pray for you, and then you never pray for that person, you're actually sinning. So since I just said I would pray for you, how about we all just pray for it right now?
Yeah.
So we don't forget. Okay. Awesome, God. Thank you so much for the opportunity to just gather us here together and that we get to share some different perspectives on topics such as this. God, I just pray for the person who asked this question, Lord, that you would just be working in their heart, but you would also be working in the other person's heart, the person who has caused them pain. And Lord, I just pray that they would turn your eyes upon you and that they would find you. And Lord, I know this situation is applicable to all of us, not even just the person who asked this question. So Lord, I just pray that in our relationships, we would learn how to set healthy and godly-based relationships and boundaries. So thank you so much for gathering us here together. I'm so excited to talk about this. But yeah, we would just like to lift up that friend in prayer. And I also just pray for us too, that we can do the same exact thing. So we love you so much. Amen.
Amen. All right. I think that was really great. So both of those are awesome. I want to throw this to Brendan because not that I fully know like your situation, just as a question. So some of us, and I bet a lot of us, because you guys are in middle school and high school, I bet you're in situations where you can't put physical distance between you and that person who might have caused harm or might be toxic in some way. Like they might be a family member that you live with. It could be a mom or a dad, or it could be somebody you see in class every single day. And there are ways that we can't put physical distance in between us. So do you have any advice for people who have to see these people every day, but you're wanting to set boundaries and you're wanting that relationship to be healthier? Do you have some advice for us?
Yeah, so my best advice in a situation like that, if you're trying to like kind of ease out of it and let things cool down, what I did anytime like any of that stuff kind of popped up is I'd work out, I'd go on runs, basically trying to get my mind kind of in the right place in order to fix the situation and then come back home and try to talk it out if the situation's right. I mean, not all the time you're going to be as lucky with that, but basically just trying to find stuff to distract yourself and let your emotions cool down before you say something you don't mean. So
yeah, that's good. I love that you put that back on yourself because I think a lot of times when we feel like, oh my gosh, my mom is this toxic person, or oh my gosh, my sister is so toxic, or whatever we've told ourselves, and that could be so true. But I think sometimes we fail to think, okay, but how am I reacting to that? And how am I going to handle it? Because you, obviously, I hope that if you're here listening to this sermon and you're here listening to this Q&R, that you want to have a better mental health. And if you know that person's not going to change and you can't change the situation, then something else has to change, and that something else might be you. So I love that you said like that you like to try to like take some time off, cool down, try to get back in the situation with a little bit more like reason and logic. I love that. All right, does anyone else have anything to add to this?
The only thing that I can add along those lines is just not to allow somebody else's emotions dictate your emotions. Self-love and reflection is great, and it goes a long way. And just because somebody else has issues with expressing their emotions in a healthy way doesn't mean that that's your fault or something that you need to react to.
Yeah, that is so true. I think it's hard when someone is coming at us with a lot of awful behavior. We tend to take that on ourselves, and we either are like, oh, I'm going to try to fix them, or, oh, I have no idea why they're acting like this. I need to go and find out what I did wrong. And then we take on those emotions. So we become frantic and worried, and we become mean, and we're getting aggressive, and all of these things because we took on someone else's emotions that were never meant to be ours. So I like that a lot. We're going to change topics really quick. We're going to go to anxiety, which I know we spent a lot of time on during this series. And we got this question that I love, and it's, is having anxiety a weakness in our faith?
no, if anything, I take it more as a strength, because if I can say I'm having a really bad panic attack, if I can get through that and pray over it, I kind of feel closer to God. And I feel like that's what you should do, is if you're ever anxious, or no matter where you're at, you could be at school, public, whatever, just pray over it. I mean, if anything, it's just going to build your strength with God, because you're you're trusting him to kind of get that off your chest. And I promise you, it feels 20 times better right when you're done praying over it.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. That's really good. I like that you said it really is not even, it's not like, oh, it's just not a weakness. It's actually a strength for you to be able to recognize it in yourself and recognize that you're struggling and reach out. It's a sign of strength that you're able to reach out and ask God for help. Do either of you guys have anything to say about this?
Yeah, no, to me, anxiety is one of my greatest strengths. I don't consider it a weakness. For me, I've just tried to spin those emotions that I feel that keep me up at night, that I'm thinking about at 2 o'clock in the morning, and turn it into prayer. Why am I thinking about it? Why is it bothering me? You have to give it to God, and that's easier said than done, but the first step is praying. And if you're not going to pray about it or talk about it in a healthy way, like to God, then you're really just worrying about something that you're not even trying to change, because the only person that can change that is God.
Yeah, that's good. Hadley?
Yeah, I love how you say just give it to God, because I think whenever we talk about prayer, I don't know, I always feel like prayer is so professional and it always has to be like that. But I always think about this one time I was bad. Like, I was at a really low point in my life, and I remember I was just laying on the bathroom floor sobbing, and I literally said, I was like, God, take it. Like, I can't do it. I need you to take this burden from me. And I felt it. Like, I just felt all that anxiety and weight come off of me. But that being said, like, just because you say, God, take this from me, he might not immediately. Like, God doesn't just answer prayers with yes and no. He also answers prayers with wait. So the thing is, you have to also be patient in the midst of your anxiety. You have to trust that God is going to work in your heart and your life, but you have to give him the time to.
Yeah, that's good. I think sometimes we get through like the first couple steps where we're like, okay, I'm starting to feel anxious. Okay, I'm going to pray. God, take this away. And then it doesn't change. And then you're sitting in the heartbreak of, did God say no to me? Like, does he not want me to have good mental health? Does he not care that I'm feeling this way? Like, who is this God if he can't do something that simple for me, to take my anxiety away? So I like what you said. Like, you do have to wait on God, you know. There's huge, big theological debates about this kind of stuff all the time in all of the Bible colleges across America and across the world. But the simplest way that I could say it is that sometimes so anxiety is a physical and it's a mental problem, and that's like tethered to who we are in this world, you know. When Adam and Eve ate the apple and the original sin occurred, it brought a lot of negative things in our life. And one of the things that it brought is like physical pain, where it says, this is crazy, but it said like women are now going to have pain in their childbirth. So even stuff like that like came with that original sin, and it was not from God. It's something that we created here on this earth. We have this pain. And so I will say, like, I love when people talk about like how we are beautifully and wonderfully made. I don't think that God gave us anxiety as this like, here, this is a present from me to you. Like, I don't think God was trying to either make us stronger or make us weaker. I think it's something that happened because as a result of the sin and the pain and the real medical problems that we face on this earth. And so I think just like God is not going to cure a broken bone overnight, anxiety is the same way. I think we so often think of it as the spiritual thing, and I think that's where this question comes from, is that people will often say that if you're anxious about it, then you're not trusting God enough. And that is just a load of crap. Can I be honest with you guys? It's a load of crap. And it's not, that's not who God is. He's not here to test us. He's not here to try to like make our lives harder and see if we'll do the right thing. God wants us to succeed. He wants us to have this thriving life, and that includes good mental health. So I love those answers. I think those are all really good. Like, our anxiety it's not a weakness. I think it is in the sense that it's just like a medical ailment. It's an ailment that sucks for us, but I think it's so cool that we can make it into a strength for us. So the next question, that I really like is it bad to see a therapist? I feel like it always has such a negative view about it.
Well, no, first off. You should always be turning to others, to kind of bounce things off of them. Like Jesus was the ultimate counselor, and people came to him and told them their problems and wanted that assistance in trying to get through it. I mean, prayer for one is the ultimate cliche answer, I know, but like really, I mean, ultimately you should pray about it. But two, I mean, for me, I've seen counselors before, I've seen therapists. I think they're a great tool in helping you think through your own thoughts in a more rational way, because especially anxiety and depression combined, like you can just go down this massive rabbit hole, and before you know it, you're the problem and everybody else is the problem. And
it's all problems.
Yeah, they didn't call you in time, and I mean, you just think of little nitpicky things, and then it's just like a scab, and you just pick at it and pick at it and pick at it until it's just gushing blood. And you need that sounding board sometimes. God doesn't always talk back to you, so a therapist does. I think it's very healthy to have that sounding board, somebody just to like think rationally through that's not biased. I also think it's very healthy to turn to your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ for that as well. People that are more mature in their faith might be able to point you in some Bible verses or some, apps in the Bible that can help also mitigate some of those fears or things that you need to talk through. So I don't think there's any wrong person that you can talk to about your problem. Christian, non-Christian, it doesn't matter. Like if you have a problem, you should talk to somebody. You should never hold that in.
Yeah, and I love that because I think so often, like, we don't see a problem with going and telling all of our friends about our problems, but the goal with that is not to fix them. We just want to vent and complain and get it out. But usually with a therapist, the goal is to fix the problems. And so I think that that's even better if you are like, I have to talk to someone about it. I would vote that you go talk to the person who's going to help you fix it instead of the person who's just going to like egg you on and make the problems worse somehow,
Exactly.
Do you guys have any thoughts about that? Hadley?
No, you're gonna go. Okay, I actually wrote a paper about this. It was about how I think literally everyone should go see a therapist at least some point, because the brutal truth of life is that we are all so broken and we all need help. And yeah, sometimes you feel like you get that in the form of God, but sometimes you need like professional help, and that is just as okay. Like that is not a sin, that's not a weakness of yours at all. But I also think it's important to remember that you're a person, you're not a project that needs to be fixed. So like, it's okay if you are straying from seeing a therapist, but I do believe that seeking professional help is definitely going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah. Brandon?
Yeah, so I agree. And I was actually, like, whoever wrote this question, I was exactly like you. Like, up until literally a few months ago, until I actually spoke with Josh about this, I didn't want to really go see a therapist because my mindset was more or less like, well, it's my brain. I can figure my own stuff out, And I came to Josh and talked about it, and he was like, dude, these people go to school for this. They literally waste so much money on this stuff, but like they're trained to do this. Like they're trained to help you at that moment, at that appointment, and any other time they need. So yes, please go see a therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we talked about it was, I want to say almost 2 years ago now, with all of our small group leaders. We went to this training the last time we were at a church camp with these people who write a lot of our curriculum. And they talked about how for a long time the church has pushed away the idea of mental health. And even though they believe, like you said, God's the ultimate counselor, they're like, well, he's the only counselor. And he's the only person that you could talk to about stuff. Or another Christian is the only person you can talk to about stuff. And we did this training that I loved, and they said, what if the church was the place where you got first aid? So track with me on this analogy, that say you broke your leg and it's gushing blood everywhere. you obviously want to get first aid, right? Like you're in the moment, you're going to like try to stop the bleeding, you're going to try to maybe put a bandage on, wrap it up, you're going to want to do something. But you can't just go home after that. You can't just be done after that. So they're saying that you need first aid and physical therapy, which is that long-term recovery process that is, it's within a professional, hopefully, and they're showing you how to recover, and they're teaching you how to reuse that bone that you broke or how to fix that problem that you had. And they said, what if the church was that first aid place where you came to church and you said, I'm anxious, I'm going to talk to my small group about this, or I'm struggling with depression or thoughts of suicide, or I just have this awful strained relationship with someone in my family and it's hurting my mental health. And our church and our small groups were the place where we could get first aid for that. But it doesn't stop there, guys. The goal of our church being that safe place for you and that first aid point where you can come and talk is that we get you that immediate help, but that you're going to have to seek help past that. That we are not professionals, that we can sit in a small group and we can fix a lot just by talking and by being there and by prayer and by working as a team. But there are professionals out there, like Brendan said, who get paid to do this. They went to school for this. And that's what I would love for our church to be known as, is like we're going to uplift each other, we're going to take care of each other, but it's also not going to stop here. We're going to encourage each other to get better outside of church. So this question I really like, and I think it speaks to the idea, like, people kind of walk away from church feeling inspired and they want to do something, but they don't know, like, what is my first step? So this one I want, like, really, really practical answers. They said, how do you focus on God and let him help you? I think that's really good because, like, that's what we've been talking about. So I would, at first glance at that question, be like, oh, Josh answered that. But I want to hear, like, practical steps. Like, someone walks away tonight and they're like, it's 10 o'clock at night. What are they going to do tonight? How are they going to focus on God and let God help them?
So what I do outside, me and my buddy Jake, we actually set up a daily devotional in your Bible app on your phone if you have it. And so it's a daily thing, and I think like right now it's like 15 weeks or something like that. And so every night I just set a routine. I'm like, okay, once I get home from work or whatever, I open the Bible app, take the 5 minutes out of my day, read the Bible, comprehend it, and then at the end, you write what you thought about it or answer the question. That's what I do outside of church, obviously. Come every Wednesday, grow your spiritual, but it also involves outside of church work. You can't just show up. It's like sports. You can't just show up one day a week and expect to be like Lionel Messi of soccer. Like it's like years of outside, inside, going out into the community, just everything you can to worship God and spread the love. That's kind of it.
Yeah, that's good. I like that analogy because I think most people here would say that they're like involved in something like Hadley does like musicals and stuff, and not like we think that we know in those cases like we have to practice and we have to do the work outside of rehearsal or whatever to get good, but then we come to church for an hour a week and we're like, why do I not have this Christian thing down? Like, why is this not easy, or why am I not good at this? And it's because just like anything, it takes practice and it's a relationship. So you're not going to get to know someone that intimately after an hour a week. It's something, like you said, that you have to do outside of church.
Yeah, I love how you talked about doing stuff outside of church, which kind of brings me to exactly where my mind went first. And it's going to be something you probably don't want to hear, but the number one thing I would say is if you're trying to focus on God, get rid of all the distractions that get in the way. Like, whenever I think of my distractions, because I gave up social media for Lent, and this is where this all started, and I went back and I read Matthew 4, and that's the story of how, like, Jesus calls Peter out on the water, and it's so cool because Peter was the only other person other than Jesus who walked on water. And it was so cool because Jesus said, come, follow me. And Peter, whenever his eyes were exactly on God, he was walking above the water. But as soon as he took his eyes off of God and he got distracted, Peter started to sink. And isn't that so cool? Because that's exactly what happens to us. Whenever our eyes are focused on God and we feel that flame for him, wow, don't we just prosper? But as soon as we get distracted, we literally start to sink. And God is the only one who can anchor you. So getting rid of those distractions, and as difficult as it is to seem, like your phone is such a big distraction, and it fills your head with comparison and self-loathing. And I know you don't want to hear this because everybody loves their phone, but the honest truth is, like, what about instead of following people online, you follow the God who reached out his hand and said, follow me? Just think about who you're following. Is it the right people?
Yeah, I like that a lot because it's very easily to be distracted. And so I think, for the practical response, like for practical ways that you can apply it to a daily, I think it's different for everybody. So what speaks to Hadley may not speak to me. So I know like Hadley's very musical, I'm very musical. So like I like to listen to music if I'm feeling anxious, and worship music would be some of that. You know, my husband Gio, he's not that way. He'll go listen to a podcast or go for a run, like, and have that thought with God differently. So we just have different ways of calming down and different ways of having that time with God. And so I think you have to find out what works for you, and you have to make it a priority. To Hadley's point, like you can't not make it a priority. You have to set the time aside, and you have to do the work. And there's simple things that you can do, like to your point, the Bible app. I do a Bible app. I try to do one of those at all times. Have a daily devotional get texted to your phone every day. I mean, there's just little things that you can do that are reminders. You know, following certain people on Instagram that will give biblical messages to uplift you, that will be mixed in with your Kim Kardashian stuff that you're trying to stay, caught up on. There's ways to get a little bit of it, if that's not what you want your only focus to be. You just have to think about how you feel like you identify with God, and what's going to speak to you, and what's going to make you stop in your day when you see something and give something to God. Like, think about it and give him your anxiety.
Yeah, can I just say, Gio, I never feel farther from God than when I'm on a run. So that's so cool for you, but that's not me. And I love that, though. We all experience God in different ways because God's not just here in this building. We're not, even when I look out in this crowd, I know that half of you guys probably don't connect with the worship music every week. And some of you guys like certain lighting that we do. And some of you guys like when Josh preaches a certain way, or sometimes you guys like when another pastor preaches another way. And we all connect with God so differently. So that definitely extends to outside of this place. Like some people, like Josh, I know loves nature, and he feels really connected to God and nature because that's God's creation. I don't. I hate nature. Again, never feel farther from God. I hate spiders, and if I see one, it's over. So, but
it's just God's creation.
But yeah, so I really cannot really connect with God in those moments. I'm so in my own head when I'm outside, on a hike or whatever. I'm in my own head. I can't really think about who God is and this beautiful thing that he's created. But like they said, I love worship music. And so on my drive to work, I have certain playlists that I'll play, and they stop me in my tracks, and they make me just think before I go to work, and they make me process the end of my day or the beginning of my day or whatever it is. And I think we all have different ways that we connect with God. So I think a really good exercise, if you're I don't really know how to do that, I would ask you what's your favorite thing about who God is? And I would say, try to go from there. If you love, like I said, you love that God is creative, then maybe the place for you is on our production team or on our worship team. You love that God's creative, and so you feel like you're connecting with God when you're being creative. So you're at home painting or doodling or whatever it is. Or maybe I'm a pen and paper type of person. So when I'm praying in my head, it kind of just trails off and I'm done. But when I sit down with a journal, I write it out and I'm focused. And so I kind of found the rhythm and routine of who God is and what my relationship with him looks like, because it all looks different. And I kind of go from there on like, okay, how am I going to add in ways for me to connect with God? How am I going to let him help me? Because if I don't have those routines, then I might just throw out, like, if I didn't know that about myself, that I'm a pen and paper type of prayer, then I'm going to be in this moment of like, oh my gosh, I want to pray to God about this mental health thing, and I want him to help me, but I'm not doing on my end what I know is best and how I pray best. And so then the prayer gets lost, and then I'm like feeling like a failure, and that's just because I didn't know myself well enough. So I think it's really important to know who you are and to know kind of like how all of the, almost like the quirks of your relationship with God, like what they look like and how you like to connect with him. So I think we have time for about one more question. I want to find, okay, actually this isn't on here, and we got through all of the questions. Oh, sorry, I just refreshed and I saw that some of you guys sent questions. I'm so excited. Okay.
Oh, happy day.
Yeah. Okay. This is good. It says, people say that you can't pray your problems away to God, so then how are we supposed to have God help us? And I think we kind of answered some of those questions. Does anyone else want to speak to that anymore?
It's more or less just the communication. And like praying is going to help. As Hadley said earlier, it's not immediate. It's a process, just like everything else you do in life. Sometimes, yes, it will go away right away, but the majority of the time from what I've experienced, it's over the time, prayer consistently, daily, nightly, whatever, it eases. And then from it being like mild, it's a little bit lower, and then after a while, it's like at the bottom, and I don't really stress about it anymore.
Yeah, what I would say is just realizing that sometimes you don't pray for solutions, you just pray for peace. And sometimes that's enough. You're not always looking to solve the issue, you're just looking for God to be there in the midst of it. And I think that's really cool, just to look upon God for comfort. Like, I know you say everyone has something different in God. For me, whenever you do like the God is activity where you fill in the word, mine is always God is comfort. And I just think it's so cool because since my word is like comforter, I actually looked this up in a website one time. You can look up a word and it tells you how many times it comes up in the Bible. And the word comforter, I didn't want to do comfort because first of all, it was going to be like 300 times and I didn't want to do that. But also, like, I didn't want the act of comfort. I wanted to know where like this comfort came from. And so I looked up comforter. And it's only in the Bible like 7 times, in my translation at least. And I thought it was cool because every time the word comforter comes up in the Bible, it's not about how God is a good comforter. It's about how people suck at being comforters. Every single verse is about like, oh, this person tried to help me and they did a horrible job. And I just think that's like a really good display of God is the only true comforter. Also, like Jeremiah 2:13, this is going to be a paraphrased version of this verse, but it's basically like, Jesus says, my people have done 2 sins against me. The first one, they have forsaken me. And the second one is they have created cisterns, and these cisterns are broken. And so this is a weird analogy. But basically, if you don't know what that is, when in the olden days, people didn't have refrigerators that they could go to like get their ice and get their water. They had to get it themselves. I know that's crazy. But they would actually dig these holes in the ground, and they were called cisterns. And so they would just dig these big holes in the ground, and like the rain would fall, and they would want to collect the water. But the issue was that the water would seep in the soil and that there were like crevices that the water would creep into. And so the people would come looking for this water and it would be dried up. And how many times do we do that in our relationships? Like we go searching for like fulfillment and we want to like fix this thirst, but the places we go are all dried up. Meanwhile, like Jesus is at the well and he's saying, I am the living water, like drink of me and you will never be thirsty. And so just realizing that no one else is going to fulfill your hunger or your thirst. Only Jesus can, and just recognizing like he's the ultimate comforter. I've gone on such a big tangent, but that's the point.
I think that's really cool because where are you putting your hope in your stock? Is it in humanity to fix your problems, or is it God? Because at the end of the day, self-reflection and God and prayer, like that's what's going to fix it. It's not people. People will always let you down 100% of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we got two of these questions, and this is something that I'm gonna just address really fast because I have one more question that I want them to answer. And we got two questions that were basically like, what if you want to go to therapy but your parents won't let you, or they don't think your feelings are valid, or whatever that is? I would say, like we talked about that first aid and physical therapy, if you can't make it to physical therapy, at least you can make it here. You can make it to the first aid part. And until you're out of that house, until you can convince your parents otherwise, just lean heavy on this group of people, and lean heavily on your small group, and lean heavily on your small group leader. You know, they're here for a reason, and they love you, and they want to serve you, and they want to be here for you. So that is probably the best advice I have. I know that's such a hard situation, and it breaks my heart because I know that your mental health struggles are so real. And then you go home and feel like there's somebody who's in charge of you who's telling you they're not real. And so I just wanted you to know from our church that that hurts us, and we wish that we could fix it. But the best thing we can do is offer you this place as this beacon of safety and this beacon of hope and light, that we can do something. It's not everything, it's not professional, but it's something. So I hope that helps you guys. But my last question is, I would love to hear your advice for yourself in the past. Like, obviously for all of you, it'll be a different age, but just pick like before kind of the mental health struggle started. Give your past self some advice on how you would get through all of it.
That's a really hard question. So I'm almost 37, so let me think back to before some of the stuff. I think I would want to tell myself just to give myself some grace and patience. I'm a fixer. I really like to have control, and some of that's probably trauma related and feeling like you have a loss of control. But I wish that I could just know then what I know now, that I don't need to have control, that I need to give the control up, and that having that control and not giving myself that grace and patience is just driving a wedge between me and that ongoing relationship that I'm building with God. And I can't control everything. I can't control if Gio makes it home from church safe, even though that's my biggest concern in life after losing my first husband. But I pray every time that I know Gio's gone, and I feel better. Like, God, please let him get home safe. And I've given that control up, and what will happen will happen. And that's been a huge help for me. So just stop when you start feeling a little control freakish and think, why am I trying to control the situation? Pray, and then just let it go.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Brendan?
So I would probably say just be proud of how far you've came. I mean, like, with all the stuff that's kind of been going on, just be proud that you're still here. I mean, every day I wake up and I'm thankful beyond everything that I'm able to wake up healthy, perfectly fine, unlike most people. So I'm more proud of the little things I do than like some of the bigger stuff I do, I guess.
I love that. Okay, Hadley?
Yeah, mine is kind of similar to Brendan's, but I know this is just something that I really needed to hear, and maybe you need to hear it too. But the main point is, God doesn't make junk. Like, God doesn't make mistakes. And I know, like, it's so hard because sometimes you just feel like you're not worth it and you don't belong here. But the thing is, like, God literally made the whole entire earth. Like, he put the trees here, he put the stars in the sky, and then he said, I want you. Like, it wasn't enough. He still wanted you. And isn't that so cool that, I'm not going to cry, I'm an ugly crier. Isn't it so cool that the God who literally created the whole universe thought that you needed to be here too? And that is just so beautiful. Like, God doesn't make garbage. He doesn't make junk. He doesn't make mistakes. Like, you are meant to be here. And God is doing crazy things through you, whether you can see them or not. So.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, Jen said she has a verse for us. I'm excited.
So really, like, exactly to what you're saying, I want to make sure I know I captured this before. Sorry, bear with me. Okay. So here, one of my favorite verses that I try to remember is that God doesn't cause your pain. So to your point, in God not creating trash or garbage or any of those, I mean, he doesn't cause your pain either. He doesn't want you to be unhappy. He only wants you to be happy. So that's a product of sin and devil and our worldly struggles. So this verse just really always speaks to me when I try to remember why things have happened to me in my life and how I can pay my experiences forward. So Genesis 50:20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." So if you're feeling like something bad has happened to you, just know God didn't cause that, and He, if anything, will use that as a positive in your life for you to be a better person and to serve others. Because maybe other people need to hear your story. So don't be afraid, of pain or anxiety, to be quite honest, because it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, can you guys give a round of applause for this panel? Oh my gosh, I am blown away just by the answers and just by the grace and truth that has been put on display in front of us here. These guys are they're active members of this church family, and they're living proof that you can struggle and you can have hardship, but you don't have to stop trusting God. You don't have to stop caring about church. You don't have to give up. That this church thing is worth it no matter what those mental health struggles are. So I'm so grateful for this group of people. And yeah, that's all we have for you today. I'm so blown away. I hope you guys got some good notes down. I hope you guys got some good stuff out of this. And we will see you guys next Wednesday.